Hi everybody, I'm Dave Isaacs, and I'm here today with an introduction to rock and blues lead guitar. I want to start off by talking about the minor pentatonic scale. Now you may have come across this before. It sounds like this. Let me walk you through that pattern. It's very simple. Now I'm playing this in the key of E in the open position, and that means that I'm using a combination of open strings and fretted notes. And I want you to notice that I'm using my index and middle fingers to play these notes, because really it's a very strong combination of fingers, and because in this key the notes only fall on frets 3 and 2, by using my pointer finger, finger 1, to hit the 2nd fret, and my middle finger, finger 2, to hit the 3rd fret, then I can use a very strong and well-coordinated combination of fingers. Even if you're new to the guitar, working with these two fingers is relatively simple. And so it allows you to reach the notes without having to worry too much about coordination and finger control. We're just going to do things slowly enough right now that you can make sure you can hit the targets you're looking to hit. Let me walk through this scale for you, giving you the fingerings and the locations on the fretboard. So remember, because this is open position, we are using open strings. Open E, 6th string, thickest, lowest pitch. 3rd fret, middle finger. Open A, 2nd fret, index finger. Open D, 2nd fret, index finger. That's your first octave. It's a pentatonic scale because, just as the name pentatonic suggests, it's got 5 tones, and the last note that I played is the octave, the repeat at a higher pitch of the note we started with. From E, G, A, B, D, which creates your 5 tones, pentatonic, to the next E, your octave, which now becomes number 1, the first note of the next octave. So I'm starting with the D string, 4th string, 2nd fret, index finger, fret 2, finger 1, open G, fret 2, finger 1, open B, fret 3, finger 2, open E. That completes the 2nd octave. Again, pentatonic. 1 note, 2, 3 notes, 4 notes, 5 notes, and the octave. And because it's right here and so convenient to reach in this position, I'm going to go ahead and add on the E string the 3rd fret note, this G, which really would be starting the next octave, but it works so beautifully in combination with these others. The trick I want you to remember about playing scales is that for the purpose of training your ear to know where you are, it's helpful to start with the root, the note that names the scale. So if this is an E minor pentatonic scale, I'm starting with E. And even if I continue on past E, I want to go back and finish on E. The idea is that your ear here's a sense of completion, and that's a really important idea that I'm going to talk more about in a little bit. So here would be one way to practice this scale. Notice that I'm doing it slowly and deliberately so I can think about landing where I need to land and getting a clear sound on each note. And that's real important. Most students practice their scales much too fast, at least in the beginning. So here it is at a relatively slow tempo, and I'll go ahead and call out the fret numbers, starting with that low E. This is both octaves. Open, 3rd, open, 2nd, open, 2nd, open, 2nd, open, 3rd, open, 3rd, returning to open. Now if I just mess with this a little bit, you'll start to hear the blues. Now that's very rudimentary. I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm not bending strings, I'm not using any vibrato, I'm not sliding. All of those things we're going to talk about. But I want to break things down for you. The thing you want to understand about improvisation is that when you first try to do it, most people get overwhelmed by the number of options. You look down at this guitar neck, 6 strings, 19, 20, 21, 22, 24 frets on your guitar. That's a lot of notes. That's a lot of possibilities. So most people start off learning patterns up and down the fingerboard, and that's valuable. We're going to do that. But at the same time, you want to realize that you're learning how to play music right from the beginning. You're not just learning finger patterns. And so the best way to do this, as far as learning how to make it musical, is to trim down the number of possibilities that you're working with. So even within that 2-octave E minor pentatonic scale, we're going to start with just using what I'm going to call boxes. And a box is just a small portion of that scale that's still enough notes to allow you to play something musical. And I want you to notice that I'm playing alone here, and right now I'm not using any kind of backup, and that's because it allows us to focus in just purely on the 2 things that are most important, aside from knowing where to put your fingers. We can agree that's important, obviously. But it's also about the things that make your playing musical, and those 2 things are phrasing and line. Phrasing is what you play, when you play it, and when you decide to pause in between playing. And line is just a question of whether the notes you're playing are going up, going down, or staying in the same place. And this does lead me to one more idea that's real important. And that's the idea of balancing between your phrases. In the blues, there's a concept called call and response, which is absolutely essential. And this goes back to the African roots of the blues. And call and response means, very simply, that you have a phrase, something that's played, spoken, or sung, that is then answered, played, or spoken, or sung. And if you've ever listened to gospel music, you know what that sounds like. What that sounds like in the blues is either you play something and answer yourself, or you sing something and answer yourself. So to give you an example, here would be playing something and then answering it. First statement. Second statement, call and response. First statement. Answer. It doesn't mean that you're always going to phrase symmetrically like that, but it's a good way to start off because it makes the idea very clear. And when you watch blues performers, so many will alternate between playing and singing. And there, once again, is your call and response, with the guitar being the alternate voice. That's a concept I'm going to speak about more in a little bit because that's real important too. So even if it's something like this, I wake up every morning, you know I got the blues. Very simple. The guitar is simply another voice responding to the vocal. And that idea of voice is so important because when we think about lead guitar, and you can take that all the way to the most extreme shredding hard rock, you can take that to the most blazing sophisticated straight ahead jazz or jazz fusion, country hot licks, it doesn't really matter what it is. When you're playing lead guitar, what you are doing is you are taking over the lead voice, the primary melodic interest from the singer. If you're playing instrumental music, then you're the singer the whole time. Your guitar is the lead voice, but there's going to be a difference between what you might call the head or the main melody of the song and the part where you're, say, playing a solo. And it doesn't matter what kind of a solo you're playing. The bottom line is you're singing. Or at least you're letting that guitar do the singing for you. And that comes back to that anxiety that comes up when people start to try to improvise, because you look down at all of these notes and you think, well, where do I start? This is where those boxes become so helpful. So remember, here's our big E minor pentatonic box. 1 octave, 2 octaves. Obviously, that limits things because we're working in one small area of the neck. We're using just 2 fingers. It's not a hard pattern to memorize. But I want to break it down even more than that. So we're going to start off by using 4 notes. I'm going to start with the open high E string, adding to that the 3rd fret note, and I'm playing that with my middle finger right now, and that's for technical ease. So we're using those 2 notes, and then I'm going to go to the 2nd string and use the open string B and the 3rd fret D. So we have 4 notes. You could think of it like this, starting from open string B, O, 3, and then high E string, O, 3. And now if I put that in a musical context, again, the idea of hearing a musical home, a note that makes your musical idea sound complete, then I might do something like this. Same 4 notes, I just ended on the E. We're using an E pentatonic scale, so that makes E home. Listen to the difference between ending on a home note and ending on a different note. There, right there, was your call and response. First note ending on a note other than home, other than the E. First phrase, rather. Second phrase coming home to the E. You can think of it as tension and release. Or you open the door, you walk through it. And then you're going to end up where you headed. Those 2 ideas together create a complete melodic statement. And no matter how sophisticated your playing is, we could be talking about John Lee Hooker, we could be talking about Jimi Hendrix, or we could be talking about Eddie Van Halen. You look at any of that music and it's going to break down somehow to phrases that take you on a journey somewhere with a beginning, a middle, and an end.